time to go forward and bring up our test track. So let's open it. It's a little bit different place in this case. Here is our sandbox scene file. It's this one. So this is something what I have modeled before. And we can first take a little bit look around to how this is look in the game. So let's make a new scene file. Looks like we need to export this all stuff again. Let's see where it is. It's in correct place, yeah. Let's export it all. It shouldn't take too long. Okay. Now we have to define a new parts because this track is in different locations in my hard drive. That's correct. And we need to define the root path. This is long path from Steam apps, common, rFactor 2, mod dev, locations. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, here is our test track. We have some basic objects over here, like walls, railroad, some trackside objects like signs, few cones, and so on, and even some paint. And if we go back to the 3ds Max, for example, let's go to the top viewport, it's easier. So the shortcut key is T. For example, these pieces of road has been made in lofting like we did before on that basic road modeling section of this hangout. And we have a skid pad here and some track strip and so on. Few basic objects. And first, I can show you how we can clean up some meshes and show the correct resolution. As we can see in this skid pad, the poly size is way too big if you compare it to the road I lofted before. So there's few things how you can do it to make it better. First, we can select our polys. Wait a minute. We have here in subdivision tab, and there is a thing called tessellate. Let's do it again. Subdivision tessellate. And now we can, as you can see, it makes it even more smaller, but it's still too big. So let's tessellate it again. Now we are closer what it should be in the poly resolution. But the tessellate do not work very well in the road pieces like this, especially on curves, because it just can't hold on the edges like it should. So another good thing to fine-tune your mesh is connect tool, which works in the edges, and it cuts the edges the way like you want it to be. So let's select some edges, for example, here. And we have a edit edges rollout. We have a connect button. So we can make as many as we want cuts on the one poly. And same way works in this way if you want to. And now we have a more dense polygrid, what is needed to make the real road work correctly. Whoops, sorry. Let's go back a little bit. And let's go to the perspective viewports. So let's press P. And we can look at it a little bit closer. Another thing what might be good to use is the way that one tech what needs to be done when bending like walls or arm guns around the corner. So how we can do it, this is called path deforming. I have modeled it beforehand, a few pieces of wall. I zoom closer so you can see it. An arm go. So next, what we can do is let's model some wall around the corner. So let's go back to the top viewport. But path deform modifier is a modifier which bends the object in the way the spline, when you make a spline, and you can path deform the square object around it. So first what we need is some edge. So let's select some edge. So we need so we can make a spline from it. Let's select few edges over there. Let's go and modify selections. Dot cap 0 and dot loop. It selects long way, but we don't need that much, so let's shorten it a little bit. For example, that. Now we have a select edge over here, and let's create shape from the selection. Let's give this the name wall shape. Okay. And now if we zoom closer, we can see we have a wall shape over here. Let's take our template, our wall, which I modeled before. Let's make a copy of it. Control V. Sorry. And let's move it a little bit closer. Now we select our wall, and I pick up the spline as well. So I use the H button, which brings up the select from scene. Select from scene selection. So here is our wall shape and wall number 2. Let's select those and go back to the perspective viewport. Zoom a little bit closer. And now we want to isolate our selection so other things are not in our way. Now we have to do a few things to this spline to make the path deform modifier work correctly. First, I want to make the vertex visible. Ticks. Okay, now it's easier to work with. And now we have to set up the pivot point of this spline to this end to the line. So let's select the last vert, right click, select it, make first. Let's zoom a little bit closer. And now we have to assign pivot point to it. So I use the snap tool for that. I select here pivot, the vertex. Go into the hierarchy tab, selecting affect pivot only. Go in near to spline. And when there is a turn in the blue square box around it, then the snap is on. I press left button and move the pivot to the end of the spline. And now when we go back to the modify tab, we can see our pivot point is set up to the first vertex of the spline. And next thing what we need to do, which is very, very important, to reset X form of the spline. So let's go into the hammer tab, reset X form, reset selected. And now we go back to the modify panel, and we can right click and convert it back to the edit spline. So now our spline is ready for the path deforming. And what we need to do next is to snap this wall to the first vert and the pivot point of that spline. And I use the pivot snap again, so I bring up to the snap, tool, activate it. Again, go near to the wall. It turns onto the blue box. Now I can drag it, and it snaps to the first word. Now we can turn the snap off. Now we are ready to path deform this wall around this spline. So let's bring up to the path deform modifier. First thing what we need to do is pick path. So we select this wall shape. It moves in the wrong direction. It's okay in this case, in this point. Now we need to define path deform axis. So let's select X. And voila. It bends nicely around that spline. Now, next one, we will check that there is no distortion or rotation around the corner. So it's easier to do in a wireframe mode. So I press F3. Go into the top viewport, pressing T key. As we can see, it's pretty clear over here. So if we rotate it, you can see it's not in parallel anymore. So this end is good. So let's leave it 0. Let's go to the other end. It's good here also, but if it distorts, you can twist the other end in the twist gizmo. But it looks good, so let's bring it back to the 0 again. Okay. So we are happy. I press F3 again, so I can get the textures back in the viewport. I press P, so we can go back to the perspective mode and rotate it a little bit so I can see it better. And now we can exit the isolation mode, so we can bring the other stuff on us. Okay. When we are happy, we have to collapse the stack. So the path deform modifier exits and all the settings are bring onto our mesh. So collapse so, and now we are back in the editable poly. If it's too long, we can select some polys over here. And delete. And I think we are now happy. We are ready to export this. So let's go back to the Hammer tab. Click More. Bring up our converter. Because we are talking the wall, we don't need a hat at all. Collide is all enough. It's enough. We want to tag Omni, so it will be lit under lights and gMoto normals. And let hit to the mesh. It's there. Now, when we have additional objects in our scene, we have to generate new scene file as well. So let's select all objects and do scene. That should be okay. Now we can go back to the viewer. And let's see how our wall works, how it will be looking. We made it over here. And here are our wall, which is bending nicely around the corner. And that was being done with a basic straight mesh edge spline and path deform modifier.